Welcome to the Quantum Biology Collective podcast, where we break down the practical strategies of this emerging science, starting with healthy light habits and going wherever the quantum superhighway takes us. This is your host, executive and life coach Meredith Oke, with a quick reminder that podcasts are conversations, not consultations, and definitely not medical advice. We're here for informational purposes only. To follow up with our amazing guests, please do check out the show notes. And to stay in the loop with the QBC podcast, join our email list, also linked in the show notes. All right. By now, we're all very well aware that technology is basically just terrible for our biology. And yet, it's so amazing. I was doing a little tech audit of my morning, and just today I used my phone to download a meditation, book a cat sitter, track down an author that I'd like to interview on this podcast. I had a Zoom call with team members who live on the other side of the world, and I really can't imagine my life without this amazing, amazing technology. It does so much for me. I feel like I have the universe at my fingertips. That being said, as we well know, there's a lot of toxicity coming out of these devices, from the light, the EMFs, and on and on and on, not to mention the addictive quality that can sort of wreak havoc with our mental health and our emotional stability. So, creates a bit of a disconnect. On the one hand, we know all these things. On the other hand, this is something that's crucial to most of us for the functioning of our professional and personal lives. So, what to do? Well, my guest today is Andrew Laubacher, and he is the executive director of a new nonprofit called Humanality. Humanality offers education, coaching, and training to college students to help them redefine their relationship with technology and take control over that relationship, as opposed to having technology control them. So Andrew has a lot of insight into how to do a successful tech detox and how to create a relationship with tech that brings peace of mind while still allowing us to do all of the things that we love to do with technology. So I'm really, really enjoyed talking to Andrew, and I know that you all get a lot out of what he has to offer, his wisdom and experience. And before we get to that, just a couple quick announcements. The Institute of Applied Quantum Biology, our partner organization, is still accepting applications for the September 2025 cohort and the September 2024 cohort, and the January 2025 cohort. So if you have been thinking about taking that, please do fill out an application and get on the wait list. I really recommend, if you're serious and you know exactly when you want to take it, to put down a deposit to save your spot. The wait list is getting robust, and we will do our best to accommodate everybody who wants to get in. But because we do have a live Q&A calls with faculty as a big part of the program, it's not an unlimited number of people that can come in. We have to make sure that we keep the numbers in a place where everyone can easily participate and get all their questions answered. So make sure that you get on that if you're thinking about it. And once you have successfully completed that program, the board exam is almost ready. We've had some beta test takers, making sure all the questions are clear and making sense, because this is the first exam on this topic ever in the history of the world. So what you have done by being part of this community, by listening to this podcast, by leaving comments, reviewing, giving us little 5-star ratings, thank you for that. You are supporting this field to grow. This is all of us together doing this, creating something that didn't exist, that's been fragmented in pieces throughout many decades and even centuries. Some of the research on this goes back a long, long time. And it's all come together, and you have supported and made a space for that. So thank you. And please acknowledge your contribution just by being on our email list, just by listening to this podcast, just by talking to people and contributing and communicating these ideas to the people in your world. You're, I don't know, changing reality. So thanks. Appreciate it. All right. Enjoy my conversation with Mr. Laubacher. And don't forget to visit our brand partner at bondcharge.com if you need blue blockers for any little wellness enhancements, and put QBC in the for the code at checkout, and you will receive 15% off on anything you buy anytime. All right. Enjoy. Thanks, everybody. Hi, Andrew Laubacher. Welcome to the Quantum Biology Collective podcast. I'm excited to dive into some things with you.
Yeah, this is awesome. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure. Okay, let's start with, you have a nonprofit organization called Humanality, which is designed to help people get off their tech, or at least reduce their tech. And so on this podcast, obviously, we have a lot of episodes talking about why that's a good idea, especially from a light perspective and what's coming out from it. But tell us sort of what brought you to create this and why you think it's such an important thing to focus on, this reduction of our reliance on technology.
Yeah, so Humanality, the word we created, is humans engaging reality. And so this actually started 2 years ago. So the founder is Hope and Justin Schneer. They're a married couple. They have 9 children. They are an amazing family. And Justin runs a company called Tractor Beverages. So they're an organic beverage company, really involved in regenerative ag and help restoring the earth and just, doing amazing things. Anyway, we got connected, and they went to Franciscan University. This is where I graduated as well, a little tiny school in Ohio. They, were coming back to the school and just kind of noticing walking around, like kids are just looking down at their phones with their earpods in, not talking to one another, not saying hello. And even when I was there, I'm a millennial, so I got kind of a little bit of like life without a device and then life with it. And in college, it was like a tangible joy on campus because people looked at you and said hello and asked how your day was going. And anyway, they noticed this huge shift and they're like, why don't we create a scholarship where we'll pay kids scholarship money to give up their smartphones and take a dumb phone? So they did. And 30 students got this scholarship at Franciscan and gave up their smartphones and took on a dumb phone. So I operate on a light phone. It's essentially just texting and calling, like just the basic tools, right, that you need.
Yeah.
And
wow.
Yeah, that was essentially how Humanality was born. It got, recognition around the country, and, the testimonies started coming in. So they realized, wow, this is so much bigger than just this university. I think this is for the world, And so I came on board last June, full-time as executive director. And my life's kind of weird and all over the place, but I can give you like the quick of it. I started playing music, when I was 11 years old, and I've been a musician my whole life. So I kind of had this, transformation towards faith, and after high school, and started playing in bands and then leading, a band, and I started traveling pretty much full time, in 2014 once I graduated high school. Once I graduated college, and then, pretty much till 2020 was on the road full time, traveled around the country, around the world playing music. And this is really where I started to experience myself the tech addiction. So I was, in college when I got a smartphone. I had the flip phone and the slide, and the Sidekick was super cool, and the Razor was like the dopest thing ever,
I
and
forgot
like
about those.
yes, it was like the greatest, text and like play some little games. And then, in college is when I got the smartphone. And it's so interesting too, now that I'm like reflecting on this and thinking about it a lot. Like, I don't even remember what it felt like to get my first iPhone, but I just remember that it was very quickly this like incredible experience that really turned into this pretty consistent checking, as email got on there and everything. Like it became very time consuming pretty quickly for me, So I got onto Snapchat and Instagram, and I had my Facebook and I had Twitter, and I was on everything, And as a musician, like I was touring, like you have to show where you're going, where you're playing, what you're doing. And I just started to notice in myself, over the years, like, man, I was on this way too much. I was way too concerned with myself. It was making me really anxious because I was literally able to see everything happening in the world all at once. And I really do believe that the human person was not designed to experience an attribute of God, which is namely his omnipresence. Like, he is the only one that has the capacity to be able to handle that power, right? But I had it in the palm of my hand and it was making me stressed. And then I was comparing my day, which actually looked pretty cool, right? Because I was flying somewhere new and playing in front of thousands of people, but maybe that person had a bigger crowd they were playing in front of, or a cooler place. And anyway, I started to experience all the deleterious effects pretty rapidly. So by 2018, my second album came out and I was just fully addicted to this device and didn't like what it was doing to me, didn't like how I felt when I was just doom scrolling, like endlessly.
Mm-hmm.
And I was also seeing really great content too. That's what was difficult. It was like, it was good things. It was great people doing amazing work. And then it was just like negativity, right? And lust and comparison and anger. And I was like, man, I got to get off this stuff. I'm going back to a flip phone. Like, let's do this. And I told my record label and management at the time, and they're like, that's a horrible idea,
And
I'm
that
like,
would not go over.
Yeah, it's like, this is how this is how you make a living. This is how you do your work. And I just kind of knew God wanted me to do it. So I did. I went back to a flip phone, deleted all my social media. Almost instantly that week, I began to notice a lot of different things in my own psychological health, my attention span, every point of my day, right? I was moving into a moment of escape, essentially, whether it was a delayed flight, you whip out the phone, check it, whether I was stuck at a stoplight, I check the phone. Almost all of my day was consuming content, even, when it was good. So that initial flip phone, man, it was like, I felt literally anxious to not have the connectivity. It was a legit withdrawal experience, I think, in some capacity. So long story short, it's been 6 years now. I haven't been on social media platforms. I had to go back to a smartphone because my flip phone was breaking. Like, it was T9 texting, you know what I mean? It was like the old school. I'd text like a long text to someone, and then I would delete 2 times too fast, and the whole thing would delete, and it was like, okay, this is really not working. So even when I got back to my smartphone, it was, I experienced kind of again. I literally tell people, I was like, I was addicted to the Weather Channel in my Delta app. Okay. I didn't have any social media on my device, but I found ways to enter into distraction. Even again, if it was a good podcast or a good YouTube.
Let me just check. What's it gonna do?
Yes.
Even if it's just the weather. Yeah.
Totally.
And I do want to just say that you do walk your walk, because I was going over, when I guessed books the interview, you got your intake form and there's a little thing like, what's your website and what are your socials? And you are the very first person to ever enter no socials. I'm like, oh,
I know.
he
I'm that
means
weird
business.
Yeah. So anyway, I was doing this by myself when no one knew and no one cared, right? And I don't even think we really knew the data that we have now of really what this is doing to us on a mass, scale, specifically Gen Z, but I'd say all generations. If you just go and again, I am not like condemning anyone that's experiencing this or going through this, but because I experienced myself, but I see couples, elderly couples, like, who have probably been married 50 years, sitting at dinner together, both scrolling on their phones. I mean, it's sad to watch, simply because I know that these devices now, obviously studying the background of a lot of the minds behind these designs, they really weren't well intentioned, and they weren't really thinking of our well being, right? They were thinking of our attention and really monetizing it. And so, anyway, the more I was into this, the more I was just experiencing the different gifts, I'd say, of like catching up with friends. I'm a horrible texter, so like, I call friends. I didn't know friends were getting married or having babies or going to Tahiti and whatever. And I'd call them and they'd tell me about their trip, and just some really cool gifts I started to experience, my own capacity for deep learning. I even noticed that I would overconsume podcasts, right? Like I love your work, Meredith. Like I definitely binge some of your stuff, and I would binge Ben Greenfield and Dr. Stillman and Sean Stevenson and all the wellness gurus and Hyman. I mean, go down the list. Like I was listening to too much good stuff even when I didn't have these other social media platforms. So anyway, fast forward, this opportunity came before me to help launch this nonprofit. And even during my travels around the country, I saw a huge uptick in mental health issues amongst young people at these concerts I was playing. A lot of it was a faith-based world, right? So on retreats, people are like really open to share about what's happening in their life. And so I've been aware of the issue and now really diving into it. It's definitely way more intense than I thought. But I really do believe there's hope. And I do believe people are waking up to the deleterious effects of the online life, and really how we believe at Humanality that engaging reality is worth it, and that being a human person in person while utilizing the good of technology is more optimal, right? We don't want to we don't think smartphones are, we're not anti-smartphone, we're not anti-technology. Like you and me are using technology right now. Like this is incredibly powerful, right? But if you don't create that intentionality behind it, these platforms are designed to addict you, and they will, really take away your possibility, I think, for long-term flourishing and happiness.
Yeah, it's true. And what you say is true. And it's just, as you said, that omnipresent availability, right? Like it's just, you just like one tap with your thumb and you're in. There's no barrier to entry. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to, it's just such a seamless engagement. And who can resist that? I mean, you have to be really on it. And I think that the fact that we've all become so aware of the light coming out of it has very much helped, because it's like, okay, I think about a blue lit device the way I think about sugar, where I'm like, I'm not eliminating it. Sorry, I like cookies. But I'm going to think about when I consume it because it is affecting me. So, okay, so you have programs for high school age people, for college age people. Tell me about what that's like, because I think so often what I hear is that parents, particularly moms, but parents start to understand this, and then they're like, oh, but my kids are not into it. So you have experience doing tech interventions on young people. Tell us how that goes.
Yeah, so this is year 2. Our main kind of bread and butter right now at Humanality is the college campuses. And I have one quote I do want to read just before I open this up. Simply, this isn't every, I have like 20 plus books on all this stuff, but Jonathan Haidt's new book, The Anxious Generation, if you haven't read, is pretty incredible. This is all really data backed, but this quote is essentially in all of the different books. Essentially sharing, Sean Parker is the founder of Napster, the first president of Facebook. This is kind of getting, opening the veil of their thinking behind these products. And then it'll give you a little understanding of kind of what our prescriptions are, with our intentionality at Humanality. I love how that rhymes. I didn't even know that was going to happen. So this is a quote from Sean Parker. This is, the first president of Facebook. Quote, "The thought process that went into building these applications was all about how do we consume as much of your time and conscious attention as possible. We need to sort of give you a little dopamine hit every once in a while because someone liked or commented on a photo or a post or whatever. And that's what's going to get you to contribute more content. And that's going to get you more likes and comments. It's a social validation feedback loop. Exactly the kind of thing that a hacker like myself would come up with. Because you're exploiting a vulnerability in human psychology. The inventors, creators, it's me, Mark Zuckerberg, Kevin Systrom on Instagram. It's all these people understood this consciously, and we did it anyway." So I always love to start out with that quote because it kind of frames the picture of, okay, this stuff isn't just these innocent, hopeful, designers that want to just to connect people, right? Like the things that they share, that these things, they want us to experience, it's not the full story, right? So students are coming into college at this point. We know now from all of Jonathan Haidt's work and Jean Twangy, pretty much every metric of well-being in regards to mental health has pretty much since 2010 radically increased. And specifically your mood disorders, anxiety, depression, self-harm amongst girls ages 10 to 14 quadrupled the last 10 years. Suicide rates are up exponentially over 100%. And it largely seems to be affecting girls, specifically young adolescent girls. And the pornography and the gaming really seems to be affecting the young men. So we realize at this point at the college level, the idea, Meredith, that we're supposed to moderate these things when people share these kind of ideas, like, oh, just moderate it. Abigail Schreier says it's kind of like nurses going to schools and telling students to moderate ecstasy. It's just not a good conversation. Like, you would never give a beer to an alcoholic and ask them to moderate it. So the reality is these different dopaminergic pathways in the brain that these products are explicitly exploiting really make it difficult to share and start a conversation of, hey, let's just be moderate with these things and use them, with some temperance. When you're asking an adolescent who doesn't have a fully formed prefrontal cortex to do something that honestly their biology won't even allow them to do. So really two main mechanisms in the social media world that they've deployed that they're using really against us, that again, at Gen Z, they've really experienced the brunt of it, but I'd say it's all ages, right? Main one is social approval. Second is intermittent positive feedback. So just every time you get that scroll, you're getting another dopamine hit, another feel good experience. And that's just going to keep you scrolling. And it's really the novelty. You have no idea what the next video is going to be. That's what's keeping you coming back for more. So they know this stuff. And it's crazy as at these colleges, we've launched these clubs and these students know that this stuff is bad for them. Like, they're not at the point anymore where it's like, I don't really think, this might be good. I can do a lot of good on this. Like, I haven't heard one student tell me post going through our club. Now this is, year one, but the testimonies coming in are incredible. Not one of them has been, I missed being on these platforms. Not one of them is like, I still think I want to go back to them. Every single one so far has been, my life is so much better off of these things, So when you join the club, again, we're really going in at this with a lot of addiction science. Under pricing Dopamine Nation, Anna Lemke's book. From my experience studying this and looking in this world, there really has to be a place of detox. And we're really at a place in time as well where we're at moderate behavioral addiction in regards to our devices. So again, the moderation question.
That even like the vocabulary that you're using, I'm talking to you, I'm like, what types of interventions? And like the first step is withdrawal and detox. And it really is.
Yes. And I use that intentionally, and it's in the DSM now, Digital Minimalism. Cal Newport, he's like my hero. He's got a lot of information on this. It's actually, in the DSM now, along with methamphetamines. I mean, the same neural pathways that these, platforms are utilizing and creating, right, that wiring is very similar to high dopaminergic, high dopamine producing substances. So we're serious about the word, digital detox. That's really what we're doing. I kind of said we're becoming like the AA of the digital world, almost. And it's kind of a wild, thing. But the experience that students are having is amazing. So anyway, first 30 students join. They get a free light phone. So you get a free light phone. We're also partnering with the Wise Phone 2. So these are, dumbed down phones that are really designed to be used as tools, right? The amazing thing about the iPhone is that it really, in one place, created every convenience that you could ever want, which is incredible, right? Like, we have to acknowledge what an incredible invention. It's kind of like in modernity, I know, Meredith, you know all this, but this kind of evolutionary biological mismatch we're in right now, where pretty much all the insta-fication of everything, whether that's driving, food, transportation, like, these things are amazing and good. And I honestly enjoy a lot of them. But they're also largely not what our biology was designed for, and making us sick, right? So it's this really weird experience where the convenience is amazing, but it's kind of also killing us. I'd say
Yeah.
the same is, kind of happening with the phone. It's like an incredible device, but on it now is entertainment. On of it now is access to unlimited information, which if you read, The Shallows, he talks about the reality that the amount of information consumed in one day, our human person was never designed to experience that amount of influx of information. There's multiple different levels. The blue light from the device, that's really affecting our physiology, our mental health. So we invite students to go to a dumb phone. I really think that's the best way to detox for some time. And so first, your students get a free dumb phone. And then every month we dive into a lot of the data, all the science. So like I've been unpacking all this. We created curriculum. So every month is a monthly meeting. Your first month is dopamine addiction and internet addiction. Simply going into the mechanisms at play. Like people shouldn't feel bad, Meredith, that they can't stop scrolling. This isn't that you're too weak, right? This isn't that you're a bad person or any of these things. It's like, this is how they were designed. Like this is the intention behind the design. So we shouldn't feel shame or condemnation.
Right.
But when we
we're
empower
living
people,
inside a casino.
yes,
Like we're living inside an environment that was designed to manipulate us, but it's in our pocket.
Yes, it's literally the slot machine in the pocket.
God.
I love that. Yeah, you're getting it. You're getting it. And so here's where it gets, really fun. So these students, this is a big deal for them, right? Because some of these kids got smartphones. I'm
impressed.
At 3rd grade, 5th grade. Like, I can't imagine if my high school experience was captured on video for everyone to see at all times. I mean, that would be really bad. I was a bad kid, okay? Yeah, I was not a good kid. And,
it's such a nightmare. And yeah, these little random after school fights, now they're on video and the police are involved.
Yes.
And it's yeah.
Yes. Anyway, we can get, what we're being exposed to. Yeah. What we're getting exposed to on a day-to-day, it's just insane. Anyway, so they get a dumb phone, monthly meetings. We go into authentic human connection. We're actually reteaching students how to have in-person, interpersonal relationships that aren't, based on Snapchat or Instagram or TikTok, but in-person relationships, and really teaching on friendship. And really friendships, it really is one of the most incredible things you can experience in this life, I think. And Aristotle spoke about this, Thomas Aquinas, many different saints, in the universal Catholic tradition, they talked about the power of friendship. And I'd say largely the idea that you can have thousands of friends that intimately know you. It's just a facade, right? It's not real. And really we desire intimate connection with people. And really Dunbar, he's a sociologist who talks about this. I actually don't even agree with this number. I think it's too big, but he says the real number that they, estimated looking at the data of friends that you can really facilitate was about 150. I think realistically it's below that. And online we're being told, that we can have thousands of friends, and these kids are experiencing every metric of loneliness we can look at right now. It's exponentially going up. So it's like, okay, we're more connected than ever before, but it's actually not giving us the real intimacy that we desire. Yes. So we're teaching
where is the emotional sustenance? Like when you leave having a coffee or having lunch and catching up with someone, like you leave feeling full.
Yes.
When I get off Facebook, I'm like, whoa. I had to go check something. I don't know what happened there. It's just like someone.
I know. It's tough. And I get it.
Yeah, you're so right. We're missing that. Social media does not replace that.
Correct.
That emotional fulfillment that comes from truly being present with someone.
Yeah, it's illusory. And I mean, it really is an illusion. So anyway, our last meeting this semester was on a digital plan of life. So we really give them the tools to create and live their lives with their technology. So when you join the club, you also pick a mode. Now, this is super fun, Meredith. Buckle up. Okay, so you get to choose a mode to live in relationship with your technology in the world. So your most entry level. So we actually let students join with smartphones. You can join with any phone, right? Because we're not an anti-tech company. We're not an anti-smartphone organization. We are pro intentionality. So you can join with your smartphone, and we enter into what we call detox mode. So this is your most entry level mode. The first month you go grayscale, which just decreases your looks to your device by 43%. The average American is just looking at the device, just glancing 109 times a day, right? On average, 7 to 9 hours a day of screen time. And this just simply helps take away the glances. Every color on your iPhone is being utilized for your attention. So you win already. The second month, they take off social media platforms. They keep them on their computers. That friction of just not having the capacity to look at it at all times and have to be in Wi-Fi to go on a web browser to look at social media, it just is going to decrease the time. Third month, you take off Safari. It's a very progressive experience. Okay. As you go up the modes, Stoic mode is a little bit more intense. Rebel mode is a little bit more intense. Rebel X mode is a light phone, no social media platforms, and you operate on your computer laptop. Now that's where a lot of students are at. They're in Rebel X mode. The craziest mode, which we find hilarious, which I know one person has done, is called monk mode. And that's no cell phone. And you operate on your computer laptop at your university. So when I share that with people, they're like, oh, that was kind of like my life, like other generations are like, I grew up in monk mode. You know what I mean? So anyway, those are the modes, and those really give students the framework of how they're going to relate with their technology in the day to day. And we're also teaching them hacks along the way and educating them again on why these platforms exist, what they're doing to us, and how we can counteract and live a more human life. So we also have Humanality concerts. The club puts on a concert for the whole school, and the cost of admission is your phone. So you have to go experience music without a screen. Right. Super fun, engaging. Kids loved it. They also go on hikes. They had campfire nights, all without their devices. It's weird that we're having to teach them how to do this. These just very basic human things without a device. But you'd be surprised at how profound their experiences are, during this. And, we also bring in a speaker each semester to speak on, one of these authors of these books. They're just incredible, all the data that's coming out. So we bring them in to educate as well. And so far, the testimonies are coming in right now. This is really the end of the first year. So if you go to humanality.org, you'll be able to see the stories. I literally couldn't make up any better testimonies. I won't name the kid, you can look at his name on there, but he essentially said, hey, I was addicted to YouTube. I was on my device all day gaming, joined the Humanality Club. And I realized that I wanted to learn to play the guitar. And I started to learn to sing. And just like that basic, that's one story of many, right? But just even the idea that they realized that they wanted something else in life, right? These platforms are simply taking away, I'd say, our capacity for emotional integration, but really to discover who we are. Meredith, you're worth getting to know, and getting to know yourself is actually a gift. And I think it's a really scary thing, right? Because we have our own wounds and traumas and past and things we don't like about ourselves. And I'm realizing the phone's a great way to not get to know yourself. And these students are getting to know who they are and what they desire and what they want in life. And it's just so cool to watch and get to see these testimonies coming in. And we're looking to expand into families, right? We're looking to expand into businesses, into churches. We're getting hit up from every space. It's just me and the board, right? So we can't scale fast enough at this point. But I can just say across the board, I've never experienced anything where I just bring up what we're doing. This is literally rental cars, airplanes. One quick story. Literally, this is just the other day. I can't make this stuff up, Meredith. It's hilarious. I'm sitting on my flight. The woman next to me sits down. The second she sits down, scrolling the entire time till takeoff, right? Takeoff hits, boom, head goes down. She falls asleep. We get to 10,000 feet. Wi-Fi comes on. Boom, she's up, scrolling. We land. You lose Wi-Fi. Puts her head down. Boom. We get connectivity back. She's back on. I whip out my light phone. I'm noticing this, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this woman's totally addicted to her device, you know? And I whip out my light phone because I need to get my ride to pick me up. And she's like, oh my gosh, what is that? I was like, oh, this is a light phone. It's just a tool, you know? It's just texting and calling. And she's like, I'm so addicted to my phone. And I'm like, I knew that.
Yes.
You know? I was like, yes. And she said something so profound that just rocked me. And I was sharing her a little bit more, you know, about this. And she's like, I can't be with myself for 1 second.
Oh.
I can't be with myself for just 1 second. And she said she's been on detox retreats and all these things. And anyway, these experiences are happening to me almost daily, where people are sharing with me that they're addicted to their device. I mean, we all know it, right? This shouldn't be some super surprising thing. It's so interesting
to me how little stimulus was required for them to go there, right? It's like back to the addiction thing. Like when you're near bottom, like you know it. You see somebody who's sober, you're like, what? How'd you do that? What's going on?
Totally.
Like they're right there.
Totally.
You're not getting the eye rolls and the, oh, whatever. It's like people are like, tell me more. I can't be with myself.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, so we're really offering, I think, people an opportunity to get their lives back. And I'd say that's the most consistent phrase I've heard, is that we're getting our lives back. Yeah. And, you know, so the conversation of, man, how do we interact with these things, with our businesses, with our other things? Because, Jack, how do you share what you're doing? I don't have a super clear answer to that because, again, like you were talking about, literally yesterday, a buddy of mine deleted his Facebook because he has businesses on all these things. He deleted, he was just scrolling, waking up, and saw a dude getting mauled by all these dogs. And it's just like, that's along his scroll. Like this guy was getting eaten alive by dogs. And it's just on the scroll. I mean, a lot of the sociological, you know, and mental, psychological distress we're experiencing that Jonathan Haidt and others are referencing are really largely because we were never designed to see that just in a morning waking up.
We're not supposed to. Yeah. I mean, we evolved to get information passed along through people over long distances, over long periods of time. And now, boom, the most tragic, difficult, challenging things happening on the planet are in front of us consistently every day, all day long, if we let them.
Yes. And I think the idea is, okay, well, where do we go forward, right? Like, so, okay, we've described a problem. I mean, you can, you know, the data's here. I don't really think at this point, if you read Jonathan Haidt's work, he shows a causal link between poor mental health outcomes and increased exposure to social media platforms. Yeah. As that number of time goes up.
And just to say that he doesn't even take into account the light piece. So if you add that on top of it, like, it's right. I mean, like just that alone, he can show a causal link. And then you can show a causal link with the light. You put those two things together and it's like, we have no idea what we're doing.
Yes.
It's so bad.
You're going to love this. Last night I was at a friend's place and all the lights are on. And I'm the weird guy wearing blue light blockers. Like, I still play with my band, you know, so in the evening I'm getting blasted by light. Everyone calls me Elton John and, you know, who's the U2 guy? The lead singer of
Bono.
U2. Bono.
Oh, yeah.
They call me Bono. Like, I get the jokes, you know, but like, anyway, last night I was like, guys, let's just like hang out in candlelight, you know? And we did. And it was like so much fun. And we just had a conversation. And as I was in it, you know, we were just chatting and talking. And it was a group of friends, little birthday party. And I was realizing like, whoa, this is actually not what a lot of people are getting to experience today. One, not just the stimulation of light and the blue light and affecting your circadian rhythm, et cetera, but they're getting the isolation along with the stimulation. Right? Like that experience in the candlelight with friends was like connection. Like it felt so fun to chat and be just in candlelight. And I was getting tired because I wasn't being stimulated by all this light. But your average person, your average American is losing 30 minutes of sleep a night due to our devices. And again, right, that's just a scroll, the light right in front of us. And so, yeah, I mean, our hope moving forward is like, okay, we can help educate people on really what this is doing to us. But I'm realizing the courage that's going to need to take place that I'm seeing in these students I'm seeing in parents, I'm seeing in older generations, like my parents are addicted to their devices and they're fully formed prefrontal cortex, right? I mean, it's like, there's no age discrimination. There's no socioeconomic discrimination. It's the rich, it's the poor. I really think the way forward is largely going to be recalibrating our relationship to these technologies. And it takes an incredible amount of courage because they have preyed upon the deepest desires of the human being. And maybe this is where we open up grace building on nature. This idea that, like you as a human being, you have an incredible capacity that separates you from every other living thing, right? Namely your intellect and your will. So, I really believe every human person is made in the image and likeness of God. And that articulation of that I see is in our consciousness. It's in our intellect and our will. Our capacity to choose and our capacity to be self-referential beings really separates us from every other, point of creation, and also connects us in an incredible way. But to be a human person, I think ultimately where we find our happiness, it won't be in fame, pleasure, power, or money. All those things end, they fade, they're determined on other people. All of these platforms are preying on all those desires, which, right, you look through the history of the world, so many of us, including myself, have fallen prey to one of those, or maybe all of them. But I'd say ultimately the human person was designed for self-gift, was designed for love. And for me, I would articulate love as what Aquinas said is love is to will the good of the other as other. And I was recently with a nun. She worked with Mother Teresa for 30 years. And she just said one thing, 3 words that was so profound. I was sharing her about humanality. This woman's in the trenches with the poorest of the poor every day. I mean, this woman, talk about a being of light, like emitting light. This woman was just emitting light. I don't know how else to describe it. But she just said about the phone, she said 3 words. She said, "It stops love." And I was just like, oh. I was like, whoa. Yeah, it stops love.
Oh, God.
Yeah. And as she said that, I was like, wow, think about all the relationships and the couples that, that I see, and that, maybe the person listening is experiencing, where your spouse isn't spending time with you because they're scrolling, or maybe because there's something more entertaining on the device, or there's a game, or there's a sport. I mean, like the ways that it's stopping love, the pornography is obviously extremely detrimental to our human sexual health even. I mean, go down the list. It stops love. And I think if love is the goal, and at the end of our lives, there's many pastors that talk about this. And the 2 things people really talk about on their deathbed is who do they love and who do they need to forgive. No one really talks about the business they build, all the people, that they met, or, how much money they made. It's who did you love and who do you need to forgive? And I'd say at the end of our lives, I started looking at my screen time myself with my smartphone and no social media. It was about 5.5 hours, right? And that was a lot of good things. I was working, I was booking gigs, I was doing good things. I just did some basic math one day, Meredith. And I was like, okay, 5.5 hours times 7 days a week, times 365 days a year, times the next 20 years. What would my screen time look like? That came out to about 4.5 years of my life, which if your average American is 7 to 9 hours, really kids are up 10 to 15 hours a day. We're talking 10 years, 4 to 10 years of our lives are going to be on screens. And I looked at that number and I was just like, I don't want that. I realized I didn't want that. And in my day-to-day, this is where this really started to shift for me, is I started to make decisions and build new habits that I know now I can look in the next 20 years and not have to look at that number, because it's going to look different. It's not going to be 4.5 years. I hope it's going to be way less, And here's the difficult thing, right? There is nuance and complexity here, because like we're on a screen now and this is work, and hopefully this is going to help people actually get off of their screens, and engage reality more. And we have to be on these things for work. And I get that, but I'd say all of us could find some space in our day where we can say no to the dopamine hit, right? And I wasn't strong enough. I personally wasn't strong enough. I tried to go back to Instagram and be moderate. I couldn't do it. So this isn't like this. I know I'm too weak to be able to really handle these technologies. So I have to go pretty intense, but so that would be kind of my encouragement, to look at the gift of time in your life. It's an incredible finite resource that is being mined right now by trillion-dollar companies. I have to say this. There is no time in the coming future, unless there's policy that changes, where these platforms will become less addictive, because they're making too much money.
Absolutely.
Right? So we do have to take some plans. And I'd say at Humanality, that's kind of our mission, is to help people. One, you got to detox. You have to take some time away. And it's funny, people are doing that. This is happening. Like, people are talking about this. But then after that, you really have to create a plan. I don't know how else to describe. I mean, there has to be a plan, right? You plan your financial life
and other people. Because
yes, and other people that want to do it together.
Addiction, like if you're the only one.
Yes, and that's actually why I think Humanality is working. These students are so afraid to do this by themselves. When they hear that friends are doing this, they sign up instantly, because they realize that, oh my gosh, I mean, everyone, honestly, to a large degree, if you could grow your businesses other ways, if you could connect with people in person, most people I talk to want to opt out. It's just that everyone is on them. Now, Jonathan and I talks about this collective action at the student level. Like, I think we could do some collective action at a larger scale, where, adults start to, engage more with each other in person. And it's like, it's not just for kids, right? This is for adults, for all of us. It's going to take a lot of work. I do think, honestly, what I've entered into is like a 40-year project. And I think it's going to take my life's work. And the great thing about it is, I'm reading Cal Newport's book, Slow Productivity. Highly recommend. Essentially, all the greats that did anything amazing in the world, we hear about it after 20 years of them doing it. And then you just hear the product that was released, right? But right now, in an Instagram influencer world, it's like everyone has to know what we're doing at all times. And we're really not experiencing the beauty of the depth of the slow burn that a lot of things in life take. Like writing a book.
People would go away and work on a book for months, years. They would go study something. I picked up a book that my husband ordered yesterday, and this historian was like, "Oh, I wanted to look at the French Revolution through this specific lens, but I realized I didn't know enough, so I went back to study, and now I'm writing this book. It's been 20 years." Like, that's how long he studied. His name is Gustave Le Bon. He's French.
Nice.
The French get really into that, right? But that was what was needed for him to feel that he had mastery and depth of knowledge in order to look at history through the framework that he wanted to look at it through. And I just thought, oh my God, like we read like a summary of a book that someone wrote in 6 weeks.
I mean, we read a tweet, I mean, this is literally what the Shallowest talks about. I mean, the depth of, I honestly, I started going to read books more. I've had kind of a progressive detox myself. Like, I was listening to too many good podcasts, and I realized I wasn't actually getting into the depth of these topics. So I'm starting to just read the topics that I'm studying more. I've been fascinated with wellness for a long time. I've felt called to healing my entire life. And so, I got this national board exam done last year for health and wellness coaches, and I'm super passionate about the whole person.
Amazing.
And kind of what we talked about.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks. And I'm going to take your course, Meredith. It's going to happen. But just this idea of grace being all nature, I got into the love portion, which is obviously, I say, the fulfillment of that. But like, our day-to-days, right, are mostly sedentary and mostly staring at screens. And it's incredible because it's created a lot of wealth in our society and in our human experience, and the improvements in sanitation and the improvements in the medical world. Like, these things are all amazing, but there is just kind of double-edged sword where, at the same time, again, our biology, our human nature is designed for in-person connection. So really, I mean, us doing this in person together in a podcast room is going to be infinitely more powerful for us, as interviewee and interviewer. Like, And that's the optimal, right? And that's what we desire. So it as a whole, we can't throw away all these things, right? But if we can create that intentionality in our days to where we can get more in-person contact, every metric we can look at for well-being, I think, is going to increase. Now, if you're being extremely social and eating ultra-processed food and, 20 pounds of sugar a day, like, okay, that's probably not going to work, right? But if we can start to get this relational piece of being in person, getting outside, playing, getting outside, Jonathan Haidt talks about this play-based childhood compared to a phone-based childhood. I think a play-based adult life is needed. I don't know about you, but the older I've gotten, I just, you get kind of cynical or serious, or like, you forget that we have to become like children, right? If we want to get into heaven. And this childlike play, like I've been playing a little bit more Ultimate Frisbee, and like just getting some play instead of having to, okay, I got to go strength train and do this workout and make sure I get my zone 2 and get my son, like, it's getting all too serious. And I think
just
even as adults,
go outside and have fun.
Go play, go surf. Like, my life was growing up surfing.
I
grew up
say
in Southern
that
California.
like I'm good at it. I'm not.
Right.
I have to really, really be like, okay, Meredith, you may have fun now. I mean,
no,
my life is fun. This is fun. I do lots of fun things, but yes.
Totally.
Yeah. And like the kids are ready. My teenagers came up to me or told me like a couple of months ago, there was some app that started advertising on TikTok, and the app was to download to regulate your screen time.
Wow.
And instead of telling the kids that, they started telling the kids something like, do you really want to be manipulated by TikTok? Like, do you know what they're doing to you? And they started making the kids feel like insiders against, sticking it to the man. And they all started downloading this app.
I love that.
Regulated their screen time and put up some barriers to access. So they had to like wait. And then by the time the seconds were up, I don't want to anymore. But they're telling me about it. I'm like, oh, really? It's not like they're going to listen to me, but they did listen to the TikTok ad. But what was interesting to me is that they were up for it. Like, they wanted it.
Yes.
They were like, we need this. It's really helpful.
No, people want this stuff. I mean,
like,
they do.
We're ready. So, okay. So I want to just end on this idea that you mentioned, and I listened to you speak about it in some other places. Grace. What is it? Grace builds on
grace
nature.
Building on nature.
And this to me has a lot of different levels, but particularly a spiritual level. And if this is the wisdom of the ages, that our connection to nature is the foundation of grace.
Yes.
Say more.
So we've talked about, a little bit of, so the idea is grace being, God's divine life. Now, I say that could be displayed in multiple different ways. And even the more I studied the quantum of light and what light is, it's absolutely incredible. And all throughout, at least my Catholicos, Catholic, according to the whole, it also means universal. So I was like saying my universal tradition I've been a part of and experienced, the intellectual tradition, at least, it's deeply correlated to light. Like, all throughout the scriptures, God is correlated to light, which is extremely fascinating. But also this idea, so of grace, experiencing God's divine life, which is really his self-gift, his love. I mean, Meredith, even, like, your existence, like that we exist right now is a total gift, right? I mean, if you look at the chances of the reality of our universe existing, of the different electromagnetic background radiation, of the strong nuclear force, strong and weak nuclear force. If you look at gravity, all these different parameters that at the initial Big Bang had to perfectly be fine-tuned. Christopher Hitchens, which is actually one of the top atheists in the world, said that this is actually the greatest argument for some type of being, some mind behind the design. It's simply the fine-tuning argument, right? I mean, everything is so finely tuned for our existence. Our existence is a gift. So the idea that, grace can build on nature, for me, I feel like understanding more and more. And there's saints in my tradition too that have shared this. Saint Hildegard of Bingen being one of them. This woman was like Sorry, but she was a badass chick. I mean, she was like a 12th century mystic, herbalist, healer. She was talking about sauna and intermittent fasting in the 12th century. Okay, you can look up Saint Hildegard of Bingen. This woman was incredible. She wrote books on medicine. I mean, incredible. But talked about this, what she called viridatis, which was this healing energy of greenness. She literally would prescribe women, people that would come to their monastery, to go into nature to heal, you know? And so our Earth, our planet that we inhabit, personally, I love Elon, great guy. I don't want to go to Mars, okay? I love Earth. I love my feet connected to the Earth. I want to stay here. I don't want to go out there. I want to stay here. The Earth, I'd say, is that place where we can interact and experience that grace, which St. Paul talks about in Corinthians, that we can know that God exists from what has been created. So that waterfall, that tree, that sunset, like these are pointing us to the divine, right? And I don't know about you, but I rarely go outside and look at a sunset. But when I do, I get this awe experience. I feel connected to people, to God. It's like this amazing. I love sunsets, but I really rarely kind of do these things. But I notice when I get into nature, when I get into reality, this is what humanality is all about. Humans engaging reality. When we eat a good meal with someone, when we have a good drink, when we experience a great movie, when we experience a great song, when we make love, when we experience nature and surfing or whatever, like these are things where we experience grace, and these are things where we experience life. And I'd say the virtual world, especially the other day, I saw in an airport the guy with the VR set thing on his head, like just sitting in
the kind of hell.
Yeah, but that's where we're going, right? And I think what we're sharing is like, hey, I think if we become more human again and really connect with each other and our maker and our day to day in more human ways, we're going to flourish. We're going to be happy. You're going to experience healing, just like St. Hildegard prescribed people to experience the greenness, the healing energy of greenness. I'm in Dallas, Texas. I have to be honest. There's not a lot of greenery. Okay. It's concrete jungle out here. I kind of struggle a little bit with that. I am made to be in nature, So I think all of these places are places where we can experience grace that builds on our nature, what it means to be human. And I think what it means to be human ultimately is to love. And I know that sounds cute, but it's actually the most terrifying, difficult thing you'll ever take on in your entire life, to will the good of the other as other, right? It's difficult.
No,
but
it is. I mean, and it's love. And we have, Carrie Bennett, who teaches all of the science in the certification. If you take it all the way, it comes back to love.
Yes.
You might be starting with light. You might be starting with junk, going from junk light to natural light to this, to this. But the end point is always love, even if you come in through the door of science.
Yes. And I think science is a great door. It's led me to the divine. I mean, the more I studied science, the more I've studied light. Honestly, I listened to Stillman in 2020, and I was in seminary at the time, and I was studying light, and then he just opened up, obviously, all the, I think it was with Ben Greenfield, and it was all on the science of light, and it just blew my mind. And when I started to implement light more in my day and get my raw optics and my blue light blockers, and I started to do these things, I mean, I've experienced a noticeable shift in my own life, in regards to light. And it's just amazing how they're so correlated, right? And when you give your nature, I guess this is the ultimate reason why I love this grace builds on nature idea. When you give your nature what it needs to flourish, our bodies are incredible. They're going to do what they were designed to do, right?
Yeah.
And I think even in regards to our technology, man, if we could take a step back from some of these escapes, from some of these, time suckers, from some of these social comparison platforms, and get more connected with each other. Again, that's what our nature was designed for. Like, you're gonna feel better. So here's a challenge, Meredith, for people listening.
All right.
Whatever day,
let's wrap
you
up
ready
with
for
a
this?
challenge. Yeah.
Let's wrap up with a challenge. I'm gonna invite people into, and I didn't know I was gonna do this, but I feel inspired.
Okay.
I'm going to ask people, whoever listening to this, even if you're listening to this through a platform of some media, some social media, for a 7-day digital detox. And here's really all you got to do. Pick one thing. This is going to be so much easier than you think. Actually, it's going to be terrifying, but you can do it. Pick one thing for the next 7 days that you can do to be more intentional with your device. Here's a few examples. 1, keep the cell phone out of your bedroom. So if you need to go buy an analog alarm clock, go buy an analog alarm clock somewhere right now. 2, this is some of the fun things we kind of challenge students in. This one's hilarious, but it's true. Keep the phone out of the bathroom, okay? No bathroom. We know you're not pooping for 30 minutes, okay?
Yes.
Keep the phone away at meals. Those are 3 great things. The bedroom, the bathroom, and the dinner table. Just keep the phone out of those 3 environments and just notice what your week feels like. Maybe it's in the car, right? Maybe for 7 days, you're not going to look at your device while you're driving. You kind of get the idea, right? Pick one thing that you know will be challenging, and then just try it for 7 days and see how you feel. And then maybe hit Meredith.
And we all know what that thing is. Maybe like, oh, I already have a no phone at the table rule, but I'm like, oh, but my car. We all have the corner.
Mm-hmm.
So
or just say, hey,
find the pain point and let's try for a week.
Yes, and start with yourself. Okay. The idea that we're going to force, your kids and your husband, your spouse. You start with yourself and experience that freedom yourself, and then people are going to be attracted to it. But Meredith, this was awesome.
Beautiful.
I love your work. I'm excited for this friendship, hopefully to continue.
Yes.
And super thankful for the time.
There's lots of fun things that we can do together. And for people to find you, it's humanality.org.
Yep.
Okay.
That's where we're at.
Socials. We've established that. No socials.
Yes.
I'd love to do some things together. And there's also, have you heard of the daylight computer?
Yes.
It sounds like they're doing with the tablet and the computer the phone that you have.
I just heard about these guys.
What I didn't realize is I interviewed the founder, and I didn't realize he's pulling, he's taking the blue light out of the screen, but he's also designing different modes. He's like, there's kale mode, like the vegetable, where you only have access to like the one thing you need to work on.
Yes.
And then the mode where you've access to all the things in the world is called cocaine mode.
Yes. That's true. That's the mode you're living in. And sometimes, sometimes obviously like, there's so much more to go into, but I want to connect with those guys.
So yes, I'm going to connect you because that could be the next step. If you start with the phone and then people could graduate to having
I want that in all of our, I want those devices in all of our clubs for sure.
Amazing. Well, I love what you're doing, and I love, how your life is unfolding, and that you are open to your intuition and following your path and bringing joy in many ways. So it was such a pleasure to meet you, Andrew.
Yeah, thanks, Meredith. We'll do it again.
Woohoo! You made it to the end of another episode. Thank you so much for joining us on this exploratory adventure into new realms. Your energy and support are building a different world, and I am so grateful to be on this journey with you. Take care, and thanks.